February 14th, 2008, my accountant called me and said, you got to declare bankruptcy or liquidate your few remaining assets to pay off your taxes, but you're done. And that, while logically I saw my money dwindling, that was the first time in my life I had to accept it. Like the first moment I realized, oh, I can't hope I'll sell my way out of this. And I came home to my wife, I have 3 children, and said, we're done. And we lost our house. Everything was done. My daughter, she was 9. She said, Dad, can I still go to horseback riding lessons? And, I'm sobbing. I'm like, no, it was $20, just to give you context. And I said, hey, you just can't. We don't have the money. And she stood up. I thought she was running away from me. She had those little skinny legs booking away. And I just felt this heaviness, but she came back to me with her piggy bank. She'd been saving to buy a horse actually, and, quarters and nickels. And she goes, Daddy, since you can't provide for our family anymore, I'll start doing it.
I have this crazy goal of getting this podcast to over 10,000 subscribers in the next 3 months. Here's how you can help. Over 96.6% of people that view this podcast are not subscribed. So if you've got even a little bit of information or inspiration from this podcast, I please ask you to subscribe. Help me help more people. And let's get into the podcast. Mike Michalowicz, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Many people know you for Profit First, one of the best selling business books really of all time. But I want to talk about when your 9-year-old daughter went to get her piggy bank and said that she'd be the provider for your family when there was pretty much the opposite of how people see you today. So break down that story of that moment to where you are today.
Gosh, James, you got my heart racing already. Yeah. So, just a little perspective, I've been an entrepreneur ever since I graduated college and was building businesses, and admittedly, but didn't know at the time, got super cocky, thought I knew everything about entrepreneurship. I'd sold a couple businesses. I had wealth beyond whatever expected, and I was not even 30. I was just 30 years old. I became an angel investor, and I honestly sucked at it. I had no idea what it meant. I didn't understand. So I just said, well, if James, you got an idea and I'm here, here's some money. We're going to crush it because I'm here. I had this fat ego. I invested in all these different businesses, and none of them were successful. And it wasn't because of the entrepreneurs, it was because of me. I didn't know what I was doing. On February 14th, I know that the minute, on February 14th, 2008, my accountant called me and said, you got to declare bankruptcy or liquidate your few remaining assets to pay off your taxes, but you're done. And that, while logically I saw my money dwindling, that was the first time in my life I had to accept it. Like the first moment I realized, oh, I can't hope I'll sell my way out of this. And I came home to my wife, I have 3 children, and said, we're done. And we lost our house. Everything was done. My daughter, she was 9. She said, Dad, can I still go to horseback riding lessons? And, I'm sobbing. I'm like, no, it was $20, just to give you context. A group of kids, they would walk and trot and do different horse things. And I said, hey, you just can't. We don't have the money. And she stood up. I thought she was running away from me. She had those little skinny legs booking away. And I just felt this heaviness, but she came back to me with her piggy bank. She'd been saving to buy a horse actually, and, quarters and nickels. And she goes, Daddy, since you can't provide for our family anymore, I'll start doing it. And it was, if I think about it too much, I start crying again because it's emblazoned on my heart. I'll never forget that moment. The darkest moment of my life, and what it was also an awakening that I really didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, that I put my family, you do what you do and I do what we do to be providers for ourselves, families, our community. The one job I had to be a provider, I wasn't providing. And it was my wake-up call. Just, I think it's important. It wasn't like the next morning I woke up and said, now I'm an author, it's going to fix things. I went through depression. I struggled for quite a few years as a dark cloud. But during that period, I started to have realizations. I need to start at the basics. I don't know much about entrepreneurship. I know more today, but I still know very little. And I thirst to learn. When I find something that works, I own many businesses now. We'll try our own businesses. Once something is proven to work here, I test with friends. And then ultimately, if it really, really works, it becomes a book.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say that you don't know much, I'm looking at all the books behind you that you've written.
Well, yeah. I've scratched the surface. And I don't mean that's like a fake humility or something. I don't know much. There's a lot of topics I still need to learn about. Those are the ones I can't even say I've mastered. Those are the ones I have a deeper understanding about now than I ever have before.
One thing that I want to touch on regarding all of the books that you've written, I don't remember who it was, but I had an author on the podcast a little bit ago, and he said that the best book that you can read is the one that you write, or the most that you're going to get from is the one that you write. So I'm curious, out of all the books that you've wrote, what has taught you the most about yourself?
I think Get Different. So it was a book I wrote on marketing,
Yeah.
and it's not a successful book. It's not popular. And the realization I had, and I think it's one of the best books I've ever written. And realization was, my gosh, marketing, really good, effective marketing challenged us to put ourselves out there in a unique, different way.
Mhm.
And I think many of us, and I too, feel this societal pressure to comply. You know, if my industry does it this way, well, I'm going to do what the industry does, as opposed to breaking the rules. There's this adherence, and I realized that my greatest progress, in my business, in any facet of my life, is when I break the standard rules. And Get Different is the explanation of how to break the rules and win. I'm surprised how many people are afraid to do it, but I also gosh, I come from, every time I do something new, I have this fear build up, like, and have to build this courage to get through. So that book has been a great awareness for me. I think it really is one of my best works ever. I wish it could serve more people, but it struggles to do that.
I mean, it's definitely impacting something I've been thinking about recently. It's not the amount of people that you impact, but it's how much you impact them. So the people that did read that book, it probably hit them really deeply as much as it hit you. And if you're gaining something from it, then not that it
Maybe
doesn't matter.
it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's that concept,
absolutely.
this depth versus breadth thing. I think we all can
Yeah.
make that choice. Is we can be of service, whatever we do, this podcast, the business you have, the business I have, we can choose to serve a broad community, but the inherent challenge of broadness is we can't go super deep. It's touching people momentarily on the surface, or we can just go very deep. But when you go very deep, you can't touch as many people, not nearly. It's the rare circumstance that you can serve people super deeply, because that usually requires a one-on-one intimacy. Super rare. It does happen where people serve deeply and broadly. So I think it's a choice we need to make.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I found of doing research for you is that parallel processing, the way that you think about writing books, you think so much deeper. Like you're probably thinking 2028 at this point, maybe even later than that. How are you able to write the book that you're writing while also even maybe writing the next book on top of that? Like, how are you able to think about multiple different things?
Oh, yeah, you're right. And you're right. I have 25 book concepts queued at any given time. And whenever I used to write one, say, okay, now I'm down to 24, 23, I'm going to get there. I'm like, oh no, there's always new ideas. So it seems to be kind of tapped out 25. What I do is, with those 25 ideas, I use a note taker system. I think it's Microsoft product, OneNote. What I do is, thoughts will come to me. So when we hang up after this podcast, I'll sit and just ruminate for a second. What I learned from James, what I learned from this. Ooh, can I get a story or something fun and insert it? I'll go through this list. So I'm always collecting for this. At a certain point, one of the concepts or one of the categories will have potentially what I believe to be a profound discovery. Something like, ooh, this has never been talked about, at least in this way, or packaged this way. This is something I can deliver. That needs to intersect with reader demand. I'm really blessed to be in touch with you, to be in touch with other folks. And I get emails or calls from folks regularly saying, here's where I'm challenged. And when I see a common thread. So I'll give you an example. My newest book I wrote is called All In. I wrote about recruiting and retaining employees. And I was researching it out aggressively starting about 5 years ago, but then COVID hit and I saw this flurry of communications like, I am struggling to hire people. What used to be a desire, like I wish I could work from home, became an expectation. I will work from home.
Yeah.
I want flexibility, became I will have flexible job environment. And leaders, business owners need to adjust to that. So once I start hearing that siren ringing, and it's something that I think I have profound insights on, that combination, then it's like, okay, this is the book that's coming out.
Yeah, and talking about Get Different, because you say it's not the one that resonates with most people, but I think that like a lot of people need to hear it in such a way. I think for a lot of people, they think of whether even starting a podcast. Like, I don't want to start a podcast because there's millions of podcasts out there, but no one can bring what you can uniquely bring into the world, and that's the way that I like to see it. Is like you're one of one. How have you been able to use that in your own business and also help so many people through it?
Yeah. So I think you're 100% correct. What I can add to that is that we all have a uniqueness. And it's usually uniqueness is a skill set matched to a background or story.
Mhm.
Many people, for example, can play guitar or have that skill. There's this one dude, his name's Pete, and I can't remember his last name now. I think it's like Darvin or something, but he was born without an ear. It was a facial deformity,
Wow.
and he has to have a cochlear implant to listen and stuff. It's changed his perspective on how he plays, and this guy is a phenomenal guitarist. So he has the skill, but he also has a story that's unique, and now it becomes a whole new package. For me, it was discovery that I struggle with complex concepts, albeit I tackle them. When I hear something complex, my mind is like, I got to simplify. I need to simplify. When I wrote Profit First, I can't really wrap my head around all the financials. There's too much going on. So I try to boil it down to the assets. Then the second thing is I have a unique story. I'm an entrepreneur too, and I have my own unique background. So the flavor of what I teach is different. I think many people teach similar things. Profit First, it's not a unique idea in regards to it's the envelope system. It's something that existed in the BC timeframe.
Yeah.
But I was able to introduce it with a new flavor, a new spice, and I think that makes it palatable to people. The last thing I want to share, this was an insight just kind of hit me about a year ago. Something I said, "What's the commonality in my books? Like, what am I consistently doing?" I was like, "Oh, I think I figured it out." What I first do is I look at what's the intended outcome we want. What's the desire we have as entrepreneurs? That's who I write for. So what do we want as an entrepreneur? Then I ask, what's the methodology we follow? And then what's the result? So want, method, result. And if the result does not match the desire, there's something wrong with the method in the middle. So when I wrote Profit First, most people want to be financially free. I don't want to worry about money. I want to do what I want when I want. The method we follow is we put profit as the bottom line. And the outcome is almost no one's profitable. So I was like, oh, the method is wrong. So once I see a mismatch between desire and outcome, I always look at the method and say, can this be readdressed or introduced in a new way so that the desire matches the outcome?
Yeah, you're a curator, not a creator. It seems for all of the things that you do, and you touch on so many problems that a lot of people deal with. One analogy that you've used that I really like the way that you explain it, because talking on Profit First, is that Parkinson's law in business is like the more money that you have, the more money that you're going to spend. But why do you think that we don't put enough emphasis on profit first?
Because I think, first of all, the vernacular, the words we use, and how we rate success are both wrong. So
Yeah.
the words we use is we call profit the bottom line or the year end. In Europe, they sometimes call it the final take. All these words say last, and our behaviors when something comes last is insignificant.
Mhm.
So if you had a health scare, James, you would never say, "Oh, I'm going to start putting my health last now." If health matters to you, say, "I'm putting my health first." So comes first gets done, what comes last gets delayed. Is I call it the manana syndrome. So for most businesses, we don't look at profit until at the end of the year, and it's not there. We're like, "Oh shucks, maybe next year." So part of it is the vernacular. The second thing is the emotional reward system. There's companies out there, there's enterprises that recognize businesses on their top line growth. This company went from $500,000 to $20 million. Aren't they amazing? Well, the owner of the business has had to refinance their house twice. They're struggling. They work their butts off, and they've missed payroll 4 times in a row. That is a real concern. So we have this kind of top line mentality. We pound our chest to it. It's definitely a vanity metric. I think what we need to do is put pride around profitability. Proud that the company has reserves to cover payroll for the next 6 months should business come to a full stop. Pride that the business is profitable, which means it's sustainable. And one insight I had around this that I want to share, our clients, whoever's listening right now, your client wants you to be profitable. Now, they don't come up to you and say, "Hey, I wish you were making more money. Could you rip me off?" But what they do say is, "I want your undivided attention. I want to be your number one customer. I want the best of you." And the only way to be that person is if you're not worried about making a buck. If you're in a constant panic, you can't be their best. Imagine going to a doctor and the doctor says, I have a heart attack or something. I go to the doctor and the doctor says, "I'm really strapped for cash. I'm in big trouble. Let's get this surgery going. I need more patients in here. Don't touch me." Conversely, doctor number 2, she says, "Hey, I'm very profitable. I do this all the time. My success ratio is off the charts because I focus in on this. I charge a massive premium because I get the results. Who are you going to go with? The doctor number two. I want them to be profitable because I don't want them to have worry. And that's how our clients see us too.
Absolutely. When I got into coaching, the first thing it was I got into it thinking about the income rather than thinking about helping people. And it was, well, actually it was the opposite. And as I got more into it, I thought more business minded and it turned to the opposite. And you only start making money when you want to help people rather than trying to make the money because it's like repelling people in such a way without even consciously knowing it. One thing that you've spoken about in a few books is the difference between doing versus designing. And I think for a lot of people, when they're in that phase of just getting started in something, they're in the doing, they're always doing. And that's what entrepreneurs do. We can work from all day and just never stop. How
Yeah.
can we get into the designing phase of things?
Yeah. So doing is important in the beginning. So what I'm saying by doing, what I mean is the activities that generate income or support the activity of generating income. So the
Mhm.
administrative work and so forth. And in the early stages of business, if you started the business, my gosh, it depends on you to do it. But then this perverted perspective comes about where we see ourselves performing at a level. I'm having my hand up high here.
Mhm.
And then as we bring on a team, be it contractors or part time or full time or however they come on, vendors, that team we see performing now, by my other hand, at a lower level, lower than us. So what most entrepreneurs do is they say, they're not achieving my standard. I got to push harder. And they keep on trying to pull up the team. And I think that's the mistake. I think what a business owner needs to do is extract themselves because business ownership, we got to emphasize the word ownership. It's not business doing ship,
Yeah.
it's business ownership. I actually argue when I'm doing presentations, the number one job of an entrepreneur is not to do the job, it's to create jobs. The majority of the world doesn't want to own a business. The majority of the world wants a good job with a good company, being paid well, and having a good experience. We can provide that. But many entrepreneurs intercept that. We insert ourselves as a superhero. I'm going to fix the day. I'm going to get things going. But we'll never find out where our company's homeostasis is. If we extract ourselves from doing the work, and one technique I suggest in my book Clockwork is take a 4-week vacation, physical and digital disconnect, just leave the business. The business will find its normal level. If the concept or the thought of even leaving for that long scares the hell out of you, my God, we got issues. We got to get processes in place. That day may come. You may get sick. You may be called to do something else and not available. But then let's find out where the business level's in. Once we understand what the business, how it operates in our absence, now our job is not to keep pulling it up. It's to start building structure below so that it naturally rises to the level we want. But until we can observe it, until we stop inserting ourselves and artificially have a level, we got to see what the level is. It's a little bit like playing chess. We can't be that piece that are moving around the board anymore. We have to see how the game's being played so we can make strategic decisions.
The next step of that is growing versus scaling a business. And there's a big
Mm.
difference. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. Do you mind breaking that down?
Oh, I love to. So this is another thing I often do when I present at a conference or something. The greatest privilege for me is I get to speak with people afterwards, and it's not me espousing advice. It's often the reverse. It's people sharing their stories, sharing their advice, and I learn the most from that. I remember, and this happens with some frequency. I do hear a refrain though from entrepreneurs saying, "Hey, Mike, I'm scaling my business, and this is how I'm scaling." And I listen in. I'm like, I don't think you're scaling. I
Mm.
think you're growing your business. And they kind of get this deer in the headlights look and say, well, what's the difference? Growth is where you need to put in more resources. There's more input to get more output. So it demands more people, more time, more of your effort to get more output. So growth takes more to achieve more. Scaling is about leverage. So scaling is the subtraction or the removal of components to get more. So where growth requires more input to get more output, scaling is less input to get more output. And it's a whole different perspective. This goes to what I call the designing perspective. So
Yep.
the doing stage, just do more, do more, do more. That will result in growth. And it's usually linear and it'll certainly cap at a certain time when you exhaust your resources and can't put more resources in. The only way through that, the only way to grow the business then is subtraction. What fewer things can we do more effectively, better, where there's a higher demand for it, or we can dictate a higher price point. And that's when you start seeing scaling. Great leaders, great business owners will think about the strategic ways to reduce what they're doing, avoid that entrepreneurial entropy of doing more and do less to get bigger results.
So this leads me into something that you've said a few times, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs almost go against this. So I want to talk on this. Is that the
Yeah.
less money that you put into a business, the more that you grow because you essentially become more innovative. How does that work in a business? Because you always hear all the time of reinvest, 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 but it's
I
almost
know.
going against that.
It kills me.
Yeah.
It's one of the softest terms. So reinvest, also the word plowback. And I hear it all the time. I was at a conference once and I was a little bit rude. This entrepreneur came up to me and she said, she goes, I listened to stuff you're talking about and I want you to know we're very profitable. I was talking about profit first, I think.
Mhm.
And we have a 25% profit or something. I said, that's amazing. You don't need profit first. I said, tell me, what are you doing with that profit? How are you celebrating? She's like, well, we reinvested. And that's when my devil horns popped out. I said, what do you mean? She was like, we bought a new truck. We hired more people. We plowed the money back into the business. So I said, oh, so there was no profit after all. It was all expenses. She goes, exactly. It was all expenses. I'm like, that's not profit. Let's stop playing this emotional placation game. It's either profit, and profit is very clear. It's something that's distributed to the owner as a reward mechanism for you to use as a thank you for building a business, or it's retained within the organization as a distribution in the future. It's called retained equity. The second it's used as an expense, it's an expense. It's literally that clear. So when I hear people say they're reinvesting and plowing back, I think they're placating themselves, not realizing it's an expense. But here's the magic. Businesses that intentionally constrain expenses have to think outside the box. How do I get the same results? One of my favorite stories is a baseball team called the Savannah Bananas. They're exploding in popularity.
Yeah.
You've heard of them?
Mhm.
Yeah. So they're like the Harlem Globetrotters in baseball. And rewind 7-8 years ago, I got a letter from Jesse Cole, he's the founder, him and his wife, saying we're doing profit first. And one of the stories that came out of it, they said, when we did this, when we took it to profit first, there was not enough expenses to pay for the maintenance and the operations of our scoreboard. So he said, momentarily, we were considering, I guess we got to plow back the money. And he said, no. This is a call to action. What can we do with the constrained money? And he said, well, no scoreboard. What we're going to do is kind of like a boxing match. We're going to have someone from the audience walk the inning between innings and show the score. And they did these other innovative things. They had the audience, you had to be 80 years or older, but you could be a grandma banana and you were on the dance team. And Jesse and Emily are so innovative and are so marketing focused. But I would also argue that by taking profit first, by reducing their expenses, it forced them to do innovative things. And they redefine the industry. Money, in many cases, dumbs us down. It allows us to replicate what everyone else is doing. It's like, oh, throw some money at it. Everyone's running Facebook ads. So I guess I should run Facebook ads.
Yeah.
What I challenge people to do is reduce the money coming into the business and say, how do I get the same or bigger results without the necessity for this resource? And then you start redefining the industry, and then maybe you can become the next, Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. All of this, and almost it feels like a lot of what you speak about comes down to ego in some regard. I want to say it was in Clockwork that you said every time my team had a question, only I could answer it, pumped up my ego and made me feel more important. You have this superpower mindset that I think a lot of entrepreneurs especially have. We feel like if we don't solve the problem, we're disconnected from the business to some sort. So how have you built a better relationship with your ego to allow yourself to scale as you've grown?
Yeah, it is a constant fight because ego is insidious. It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm supporting the team, and I can package it in a way that feels so right, and everyone feels so good. But then I realize how it hampers the growth of our organization, and how it's not the greatest contribution because it's disempowering of other folks. This concept of 4-week vacation, I do it every year now. I think this is my 6th or 7th year of going on a 4-week vacation. I'll do it again. It's 4 consecutive weeks where I leave the office. The first time I did, I came back and I sat down with the team. I said, how badly do you need me back? I've been gone for 4 weeks. Everything was fine, by the way, which was shocked. I was terrified to leave, but I got over that and I got back. And, a 1 to 10 stop talking, start working. A 1, you can go take your next 4 weeks. They gave me somewhere around a 1.1. They said, I remember Kelsey saying, I feel so empowered that you trust me with the keys to the organization. I wanted to show my best to you, but also to myself. I felt my team elevated. People were able to step into roles that I was interfering with. What I realized is every time we answer questions, every time we insert ourselves, we are going back to what I call the doing phase. We're becoming a part of the operation. And that harms the business. We need to be strategic, and it requires us to remove ourselves. I often go to McDonald's. When I travel, it's a convenient purchase. It's totally not good for me, but gosh, I still fall victim to that, if you will. But one thing I started doing is when I go to McDonald's, I'll ask a cashier, I'll say, hey, may I speak with the owner? There's not been one instance. One. I've done this, 50, 60 times. Not one instance the owner is ever there. There's a store manager.
Yeah.
That's an employee. There's the people doing the burgers and fries, not the owner. Where's the owner? The owner is, maybe they are sitting on the beach, but listen, they're giving employees an opportunity to work, but more likely they're working on design. Where's the next location? Let's meet up with the franchise operators and collaborate and think of new ideas. They're thinking about strategy, and that's the greatest contribution that a business owner can make.
Absolutely. I know we're limited on time, so I have two more questions for
Yeah.
you. You've worked with so many people, whether it's through books, speaking, so many other things. What are some common mistakes that you find business owners make, whether it's in the beginning phase as they're trying to scale? What are
Yeah.
some things you see?
Number one is they feel that they need more sales to make the business healthy, and that actually stresses the organization. Sales is an obligation, right? So the more you have to deliver. They don't have a profit model. So step one is they try to sell their way out of things. That's a big mistake. Step two is, and the solution is profit, but they don't focus on profit. You got to drive profit. Every single transaction needs to be profitable. I say profits in a habit, not an event. We got to make sure it's baked in. Another thing that they do is they equate all clients as the same. Like every client is a good client. You have a small portion of clients that are your extraordinary clients. It's based upon the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. You've got to focus on your best clients. But your best clients at the intersection of buying your best things. That's the heart of your organization, and you need to focus on that. And few organizations do. And the last thing is thinking that everything you do is of equal importance for the delivery of the client to the client. In the end of the day, the client only sees a few things you're doing. So ask your client, what matters to you? What are you seeing? What do we do that's remarkable for you? And you'll find that it's a few things. Those are things you need to excel at because that's what's impacting them. The other things have to be in the ballpark, but they're not as critically important. So you have to prioritize what you do. Those are the common mistakes.
Absolutely. I love it. There's one last question I ask every guest, encapsulates what I like to do with this podcast. My question to you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
What belief am I unlearning? In business, I think it's that that there's any kind of secret sauce. I've been thinking, we have something that's really special and unique here in how we grow our businesses. Or I'm investing in a lot of businesses, and my investment business, I have a secret sauce. And I'm realizing it isn't that secret. It isn't this access to unique, special knowledge that we need. What it is a commitment to action. I think you and I and everyone listening in actually has a lot of knowledge, and we don't need more knowledge. The goal is inspired action. So I hope even from this podcast, someone's listening in and says, oh, I got an idea, but now I'm going to take action on it. It's not an accumulation of knowledge. I'm trying to unlearn that. I keep on thinking, we have the secret sauce. No, we don't. What we have is what I'm able to do, and I need to do more, is take action upon those ideas. That's where it's going to manifest or not.
It's profound to hear because you're in a position that, you'd think that you're past that almost. Or I think
you're never past. Yeah, you're never past. I thought I'd get past it. You're never past.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question. That's exactly why I asked that question. Do you have one for personal as well?
Yeah, I'm trying to learn how to communicate beyond words. I'm trying to unlearn. I thought words alone speak effective communication or bring about effective communication. It is the holistic component, and that's probably one of the biggest things I need to unlearn. Is just because I say something or someone says something to me doesn't mean that's the essence of reality. It's packaged in with all the other forms of communication, gestures, thoughts, expressions, sentiment. There's always other elements, and I really struggle with understanding the entire encapsulation. So I'm trying to get better at that.
I love that. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. Of course, all of your links and everything will be in the show notes, but is there anywhere you'd like to direct people?
James, thanks. Oh yeah, this is my big pitch. I appreciate it. The place to go, if you want any of my books, Amazon selfishly serves the entrepreneur, the author the best. So if you want to get it, that's a great place. But all my books, there's chapter downloads. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. All this content is available for free at mikemotorbike.com. And the reason I have Mike Motorbike as in the motorcycle is because no one can spell my last name, Michalowicz. I struggle with it. So it's my PG rated nickname. I got other ones that are kind of R and X. So mikemotorbike.com is the site to go to.
Thank you so much.
James, thank you.